All right, everyone. So the Raiders and the Commanders are going head to head, and this game changed drastically with the news of Jaden Daniels likely to be out. So with him likely out, I don't love what we're looking at here for the Commanders, but we're going to give you the arguments for both sides, and we'll get right into it. So let's start with the Raiders. Plus 3.5 total for the game is over 44.5, and on the money line it is plus 154. So what is the argument here for the Raiders? Obviously, for starters, Jaden Daniels is likely out for this game, and he really is the engine for this offense. If you look at the first two games of this season against the New York Giants and against the Packers, I haven't loved how the offense has looked. I think really Jaden Daniels, it's kind of like you got a hole in your pool and you just kind of put a patch on it, right, to stop water from leaking out. You're the offense is really relying on him, and it just has not looked smooth. Even in that Giants game, as much as people talk about how bad the Giants were, it really was how bad they were offensively. For a large chunk of that game, we were looking at a 14-6 game with the Giants. If they could have got anything going on offense, they might have won that thing. And so that really worries me, especially when you take Jaden Daniels out of the equation. That really worries me. The next one, 3.5 is a really good number. When you look at 3.5, this is something where, it opens up backdoor covers. It opens up winning, by a field goal and still covering. Like 3.5 is that perfect number. And so with that, that's good news for us. And the final point I had, and I feel bad even saying this, okay, especially, because the Commanders have been through so much, and it was wonderful with them getting the win that they got last season, right? And them having such a good year. But I just don't know how good the Commanders really are at this point. We've kind of seen two things that are completely different, right? On week one, we saw them defensively, man, they were locked in defensively against the New York Giants, and they ended up holding them to only 6 points. But I watched some footage from the All 22, and one thing that we saw against the Commanders that we also saw when the Giants played the Cowboys is some of these guys on the New York Giants were Malik Neighbors and company were open deep. It was Russell Wilson's inability to kind of hit them in game one. My guess is they looked at film and said, hey, man, just let this thing go. We got some guys open down the field. And that scares me because when you're looking at, even if you just saw the Raiders versus Chargers game, Geno Smith ain't scared to let that thing go, right? He will let that thing fly. And so if the defense can't come in and give help to the offense, which is now going to have Marcus Mariota most likely as their QB, I think this could be an absolute nightmare. And we're getting this at plus 3.5. And then of course we saw what they did against the Packers. So I'm just very worried about this Commanders team right now. I'm not quite sure how good they actually are. And trust me, it pains me, Commanders fans, to say that because I'm rooting for you guys. Um, Here, the Commanders' reason. I put one simple line. Look, the Raiders just laid a dud. All right, and this is a situation where I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be coming in now on the Raiders. I think Jaden Daniels, he's kind of rightfully viewed as such a really phenomenal player, and I think people are going to realize how big of a loss that is. But we can't unsee what we saw on Monday Night Football, that late game, and how ugly that thing was. And I get the Commanders aren't the Chargers, but I'll tell you this: if that defense of the Commanders can stop Geno Smith from making some of those deep balls, if they could do what they did against the New York Giants, which is play aggressive, get in the QB's face, then you could make this an ugly game, right? And if you could make this an ugly game, anything can happen. All right. So what am I betting? Well, you probably could tell from the way I've been talking that I'm rolling with the Raiders spread here. So Raiders plus 3.5. Now, interestingly enough, I actually have this line at Raiders plus 6, right? So you want to talk about someone who got lucky. I got super lucky with this game, getting the Raiders at plus 6 because that means, completely different. But I might actually put in a bet on the Raiders plus 3.5 as well, just so I can, be in there with you guys if you're also betting this line. But at the end of the day, I just don't like what we're seeing from the Commanders, especially without Jaden Daniels. He really is. I know this is said about a lot of quarterbacks, but I just think he's the engine for this offense, right? He is the guy that gets this thing going. And in those gotta have it situations, his ability to do it with his legs, his ability to do it in a variety of different ways really helps out. And if they can't do that, right? If they're not as sharp, I think this is a spot where the Raiders are going to say, this is a get right game for us. And it's not like this would be different. If the Raiders were -3.5, right? We'd be sitting here going, okay, we got to think, are the Raiders going to play a crisp enough game to get this thing done? Even though they're on the road, right? I mean, we're at +3.5 here. This is a really good spot for the Raiders, in my opinion. And I'm actually, as I'm speaking, I'm placing the second bet on that +3.5 because I just do think that there is a lot here, right? There's a lot to be happy about here. And so, Commanders fans, if you're watching this, look, you could bet on the Commanders all you want. You could prove me wrong, and I'll be rooting for you. I'm rooting for the Raiders too, but that's just how I feel about this game. So as we always say, no profit is guaranteed. I'm just kind of giving my thoughts because I love to, bet on sports, and never gamble what you can't afford to lose. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.